Francois has just told me that he was nervous about first asking you to play a potiche. What was your initial reaction?
I laughed. I really laughed. When I knew about the play, because I never saw the play on stage. It was an adaptation from a famous play in France. But I laughed and I said yes quite immediately. When he proposed me the subject, he had not yet done the adaptation. He just wanted to. And we got very close on the film. We had a lot of fun. It demands a lot of energy, but we really had a lot of fun doing the film.
It sounds like it was quite a collaborative process between the two of you. What kind of ideas did you bring to the film?
Well, I don't know, but it would be difficult to say today because, sometimes it happens on the set when you are rehearsing and it's part of the work of actors, but sometimes the relation is not that simple with either because the film is too heavy, so the crew, we take too much time to sort of slow and say, well, let's stop, let's try to do something else. But François is very fast, he's behind the camera, which is quite rare for a director. So he's very fast and he likes to work very fast. So you have time to look for things and do things together. But for example, it's true that the color, in my jogging suit for the beginning of the film, that are on the I don't know how you call that, affiche.
The leisure suit?
No, this.
Poster. Oh, the poster.
The poster. On the poster, where I'm having the jogging suit and the colors. The colors was my idea.
And what was she like to play? I mean, Francois, again, he said that he felt that it was giving you a chance to play a different kind of character.
Oh, yeah, it was really funny because, it's a comedy, so it has to be light, it has to be genuine, you have to be really first degree, of things. You have to be very... you have to be very genuine, about doing it and to have a lot of energy. That's the thing that was scaring me a little. I knew I would shoot every day, and I know Francois because I did with him 8 Women, and I know his rhythm of work, and I was more afraid of the physical thing, to keep the energy.
People make a lot of assumptions about Suzanne. Do you find that people make assumptions about you that are wrong and that annoy you?
Oh, yes, probably, but I don't think too much about it. Probably, yes. Like people saying I'm very cool, not to say cold, things like that, aloof. But today, I don't think too much about it because I suppose I'm... maybe when I was younger, I was hurt that people would think things that were not true or have wrong ideas. But most of all, not even if it was bad, but to think of things that were not true. I was very aware of that and I was very upset about that. But today, there is so much happening and going on and so much stories which are not true, now with internet and all the people on telephone sending videos. I mean, there is no control at all and you have to accept that actually I do try to control what I can control, but I'm not a freak control and I let things go because it's the information becomes very, very, very scaring. So I just try to avoid what I can avoid, but I don't find too much against it. It's just you have to accept a big part of things that don't belong to you anymore.
And I just also quickly wanted to ask you, when I was watching the film, I sort of felt this story could only have happened in the 70s. But do you think actually, because I understand that Françoise did think about setting it in the present day, have things not changed for women that much?
Well, things have changed for women. I suppose that's why also he wanted to do it, in the 70s, for women especially it was very different, the abortion, contraception, those things were, much bigger, how do you say, a challenge, for women to have sex without having all the risk, to be pregnant. So that's important. But also because there were also strikes, people in factories with strike at the time and still today. So you kind of had the advantages of both,
That's great. Thank you very much
for
your time. Thank you. We going?
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, first of all, what was it about the play that made you want to take it to the screen?
First, when I saw the play for the first time on television, because it was on stage during at the end of 70s, I didn't see the play at this time. I saw it later on television. I thought it was very old-fashioned. I had the feeling it was no more the reality of women. But I enjoyed the play and I loved the character of Suzanne Puchol. I thought it was an amazing part for an actress. But I thought it could be a theme, but maybe it was too late, and So I thought about it like this, and because of the last campaign in France, you know, the last elections, we had for the first time a man in front of a woman. And during the campaign, a lot of men were very aggressive and mal-chauvinist against Ségolène Royal. And I thought maybe things didn't change so much. So I read again the play, and I decided to do an adaptation with all these last things which happened in France in politics. And I realized things didn't change so much for women. Of course, things change in terms of equality, but not enough. There are still a lot of fights for women. So I thought that the film could be still touch people, and the film was a huge success in France. So and the feminists loved the film. So I wasn't wrong.
You set it still in the 70s, because I kind of watching it was thinking, oh, this could only happen in the 70s. But hearing you say that, did you then consider setting
Yes, I consider to do the film today, but I had the feeling it wouldn't have been a comedy, but more a drama, a Ken Loach movie maybe. And I wanted to do a comedy, and I thought if we keep everything during the 70s, we'll have the distance to laugh about the situation, because the situations are the same today on many things, about factories, about globalization and employment, and the bosses, the way of the liberal capitalism, all these kind of things. But if we show that it was already the same things during the 70s, we'll be able to have this distance, and it will be better for a comedy.
And Catherine is amazing
Yes.
in the role. And you went to her very early on.
Yes, I needed to have agreement to begin the film, because if she would have said no, I wouldn't have done the film. I didn't see anyone else in France. Maybe in England it could have been Helen Mirren, or in America Meryl Streep, but in France I had just Catherine in mind. And I must say I was a little bit afraid when I asked her for the first time, would you like to be my potiche? And because she has a lot of sense of humor, she said yes. And she loved the character and the story. And she's very clever. She knew it would be a great part, because at the beginning, even if she's in ridiculous situations, there is an emancipation, an evolution. And you can see her changing during all the films. So she really enjoyed the part. And for her, I think it was a good opportunity to show another side of her personality and her talent, because she didn't do so many comedies in her life. And actually she loves comedy, and she has the good rhythm for that.
Was it quite a collaborative process between the two of you?
Yes, it was a collaborative process in terms not of writing, but she was close to me, and I needed to have her in mind to do the adaptation, you know, and that's why she sings, because I know she loves to sing, and she has a beautiful voice, and she has done many films before in which she sang. So yes, it was a collaboration. She followed all the process of the creation, you know, the different script, the cast, and she gave me her opinions on many things, and it was great for me, because we needed to do the film together, because I follow in my mise en scène the character of Suzanne Pujol, so we needed to be closed.
Did you have fun recreating the 70s?
Yes, a lot of fun to recreate the 70s, because it was my childhood. So I had many memories about hair, about costumes, about settings. So we decided to be a little realistic, but at the same time we try to stylize and to choose what we liked about the 70s. And for the hair, for the costume, we had a lot of fun. And the actors loved to have this costume too, because it helped them to be in the characters.
What kind of approach did you take? Because it doesn't look like totally just 70s. You do get that kind of gradual feeling of some people are a bit behind the times.
We decided to choose exactly what we liked, you know. For example, the hair of Judith Godrèche, the daughter, it's the hair of Farrah Fawcett in Charlie's Angels. And it was more the end of 70s. And I'm not sure the woman of 77 had already the hair of Farrah Fawcett, but it was a choice. And for me, it was about my memories, because I love this show, television, when I was a child. So it was some details like that. You know, the telephone of my grandmother, she had this carpet on the telephone, and all the French grandmother had this kind of telephone. So it was many details like this. And I think sometimes with some details of clothes, of costume, you can give the idea of the period. And in a comedy, you don't need to be totally realistic. I think you can play with that.
So people make a lot of assumptions about Suzanne in the film. So I was wondering, do people make assumptions about you that annoy you?
They do what?
Do they make assumptions about the sort of person that you are? How can I translate assumptions?
I don't know this word. Assumptions?
They think they know you when they don't.
Okay.
What sort of things
Yes.
they think that they know?
Yes.
That they know.
I know that. Yes. But you know, the difficult thing when I meet people have the feeling to know me because they have seen my films. And it's true. They know many things about me because I try to be personal in my films and to say personal things. But so sometimes they have some strong ideas about me and I don't want to be just see like this or like that. So yes, it can be disturbing sometimes.
Does it ever work in your favour? Do people ever behave in a certain way around you that perhaps they wouldn't have if they hadn't already, you know? Does success work?
No, it's strange about my films very often because people need to categorize my film to say we like this one, we don't like this one, so it's quite boring sometimes, you know. People have some idea, I prefer this one, I don't like this one, so but I have to accept, you know, when you are an artist, you have to accept that people see your work and actually it's a good thing.
And just going back to the idea of the potiche, the trophy wife, did you have real figures in mind then? You mentioned one or two earlier.
I had Ségolène Royal, you know, in mind, and I had many women who enter in politics and who were not considered as good politics because they were women, of course. Well, it was not the case of Margaret Thatcher because she was not a potiche, I think. She was more than a potiche. And yes, I had in mind my grandmother too, you know, the woman of the generation of my grandmother who prefer to stay in the shadow of her husband, you know, but when you see behind the mask, you can discover many things about their private life or what they were able to do, you know. And they pretend not to direct things, but actually very often the women have the power in the couple and in the family.
I was just wondering what your reaction now would be on meeting someone that you would consider, you know, for the first time, if you would consider them to be a trophy wife. What's going through your mind?
You know, it's not trophy wife is not a good translation for potiche because.
Well, that's interesting. What would be your translation?
But it doesn't exist. You know, a potiche is a vase in France. It's a vase for the decoration. It doesn't exist. You know, it's impossible to translate the word potiche in all countries. It's a problem. But trophy wife is it's not exactly the same thing because trophy wife means very often a young woman with an old man and very sexy. But you know, a potiche doesn't need to be sexy, just to be nice, to smile, and to be in the shadow of her husband. But a man can be a potiche too, you know. I think very often I feel as a potiche. Very often when I'm somewhere, I don't know why I'm here. I don't feel at my place, and I have nothing to say, and you are just there to be there. So I think everybody can be concerned about this situation of being a potiche.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.